Dawn over Midway. At 5:30 hours on June 4, 1942, Lieutenant Howard Audie, age 24 and a Naval Academy graduate from the class of 1939, climbed into his PBY Catalina at Midway Island. Assigned to Patrol Squadron 23, Audie and his crew prepared for yet another long-range patrol, one that would ultimately help decide the outcome of the Pacific War. His aircraft, 23 P-6, sat heavily in the water. Every fuel tank was filled for a 700-mile search pattern. The Japanese fleet was somewhere out in the vast darkness. Intelligence hinted at its presence, but no one knew its exact location or timing. The mission of the Catalina. The PBY Catalina was never designed to fight. It was designed to endure. Twin-engine flying boat. Parasol wing. Cruises at 115 miles per hour. Lightly armed. Slow and unmaneuverable. But it had the one capability the Pacific demanded: 24 hours of endurance and a 2,500-mile operational range. In a theater where enemy fleets could hide across millions of square miles, the Catalina was the Navy's eyes. The crew and routine. Audie flew with an 8-man crew: co-pilot Ensign Robert Swan, a navigator, radioman, flight engineer, and 3 gunners. 4 months they had flown endless patrols over empty water. The routine was grueling: long, featureless flights, day after day, often with nothing to report. But today was different. Midway had been on full alert for 3 days. Every aircraft, fighters, B-17s, torpedo bombers, was ready. The Japanese were coming. The only unknowns were where and when. Takeoff and search pattern. Audie took off at 4:15, climbing northwest to his assigned sector on a 315 degrees bearing. His job: search a 22,000 square mile area using a planned grid of legs and turns. Unlike faster aircraft, the Catalina could fly low and slow down to 500 feet at 90 knots, allowing the crew to visually identify ships, wakes, shadows, and smoke. First contact. At 5:30, 180 miles from Midway, the co-pilot spotted something faint on the horizon: smoke, multiple black plumes. Audie turned toward it, descending to 1,000 feet, and soon the Japanese fleet came into view. 2 aircraft carriers. Battleships. Cruisers. Destroyers. The main Japanese striking force. Audie's radioman sent the first decisive message of the battle. 2 carriers and main body, bearing 320 degrees, distance 180 miles, course 135 degrees, speed 25 knots. This report launched the Battle of Midway. First contact. At 5:30, 180 miles from Midway, the co-pilot spotted something faint on the horizon: smoke, multiple black plumes. Audie turned toward it, descending to 1,000 feet, and soon the Japanese fleet came into view. 2 aircraft carriers. Battleships. Cruisers. Destroyers. The main Japanese striking force. Audie's radioman sent the first decisive message of the battle. 2 carriers and main body, bearing 320 degrees, distance 180 miles, course 135 degrees, speed 25 knots. This report launched the Battle of Midway. Return and redeployment. At 8:30, another PBY relieved Audie. He landed at Midway at 10 o'clock, refueled, and took off again at 1300 hours as the battle raged. Without his first sighting, none of the U.S. carrier strikes would have been possible. The value of the PBY. Throughout the war, the Catalina's job remained the same: find the enemy before the enemy found you. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fast. But it was essential. Over 3,000 PBYs built. 93 patrol squadrons. Operated from Alaska, Australia, Pearl Harbor, the Persian Gulf. Missions up to 24 hours long. Every gallon of fuel and every inch of hull space was devoted to range and endurance. Strengths and limitations. Trade-offs defined the aircraft. Strengths: 2,500-mile range. Operated from any lagoon or harbor. Huge observational capability. Crews could rest inside during marathon missions. Weaknesses: slow, poorly armed, Immense turning radius. Vulnerable to fighters. Crews joked it was a clay pigeon with engines. But it was the Navy's most reliable reconnaissance aircraft. Life aboard the Catalina. Long missions demanded basic comforts. Bunks for off-duty crew. A small galley with a single hot plate. A chemical toilet. Canned food and endless coffee. Missions over 18 to 24 hours were brutally draining. Heat, cold, noise, and stress were constant companions. Amphibious evolution. Some Catalinas were built as flying boats, PBY-5. Others were made amphibious, PBY-5A, with retractable landing gear. This flexibility let them operate where runways didn't exist or where seas were too rough for water operations. The birth of the Black Cats. By late 1942, the Navy discovered a new role for the PBY, night attack operations. The Black Cat squadrons became legendary. Painted completely matte black. Operated at night. Flew at 50 feet above the water. Attacked supply ships, barges, destroyers. Used every weapon available, including improvised ones. Japanese crews began calling them Black Cats, terrified by their sudden, invisible strikes. High-risk, high-impact missions. Night flying at low altitude was extraordinarily dangerous. Fog, darkness, extreme proximity to the water, and navigation errors claimed many crews. Yet Black Cats sank ships, harassed supply lines, laid mines, forced Japanese fleets into blackout conditions. Their impact was psychological as well as tactical. The PBY is a lifesaver. Perhaps the Catalina's most important legacy was air-sea rescue. By mid-war, PBYs rescued thousands of airmen. Downed pilots. Bomber crews. Sailors from sunken ships. They could land in 10-foot swells, something few aircraft could survive. Notable rescues. Eddie Rickenbacker, after 24 days adrift, 1942. Lieutenant Nathan Gordon, Medal of Honor, rescuing 15 men under fire, 1944. A PBY circling overhead gave every pilot confidence: if you went down, someone would come. Medical missions and impossible landings. Catalinas also performed long-range medical evacuations. Some landings were astonishing feats, like navigating a river mouth barely wider than the wingspan to save a wounded Marine. Radar and intelligence breakthroughs. By 1943, PBYs carried early airborne radar systems, revolutionary at the time. They became the Navy's first airborne early warning platforms, tracking enemy ships and guiding task forces through fog and darkness. Global service. The PBY served with U.S. Navy, Royal Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, Soviet Navy, Royal Australian Air Force. It also flew civilian routes with Pan Am. Production and last combat patrols. By war's end, over 3,000 Catalinas had been built. Production spanned U.S., Canadian, and Soviet factories. The last U.S. combat patrols occurred on August 14, 1945, just hours before the official Japanese surrender. Post-war life. After World War II, Catalinas continued serving military forces around the world. Civilian transport. Aerial firefighting. A few still fly today, over 80 years after their first flight. Legacy of the Catalina. The PBY was not fast. It was not glamorous. But it was indispensable. It found enemy fleets. It rescued the lost. It delivered intelligence that shaped entire battles. It proved that in modern warfare, information wins wars. Lieutenant Howard Audie, whose dawn sighting changed history, later said he was simply doing his job. But his job, and that of thousands of PBY crews, helped win the Pacific War. If this story moved you, please like the video so more viewers can discover these often overlooked stories of courage and innovation. Subscribe for more real accounts from World War II, and tell us where you're watching from. Thank you for remembering the men who served.